Hello, hey Boomer listeners. It's so good to have everybody here. My name is Wendy Green, and this is the 18th episode of Hey Boomer. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about what Hey Boomer is about and, where we've come in these 18 weeks. And I see Hey Boomer as delivering a quality show with inspiring, knowledgeable guests that appeal to and engage with my audience. I also see Hey Boomer as delivering a product that is valuable to individuals and organizations that want to reach the baby boomer audience. So think about that. If you know anybody that wants to talk to people like us, please point them our way. And every week, I am so privileged to talk to some of the amazing guests that bring you important, timely information, that bring you inspiring stories. And I want you to know there is a lot of research that goes into each show. And so I want to know how we're doing. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Doris. I want to know how we're doing. So there's a couple of ways that you can let me know how we're doing. I'm showing you the top of the Hey Boomer page. You can let me know that you are enjoying the content by following the page. Where the arrow is pointing, it says send email. You can send an email to me that will do a couple of things. One is you can let me know what you like and what we can do better. You can also become on our mailing list where every Monday morning I send out a reminder with a link to the show. So it makes it easy for you to find. I also once a week send out a link to a blog post that I create about our show. And so you can stay up with that. That's it. I'm not going to spam you with a whole lot of emails. It's just those 2 emails. But then it helps me know how we're doing and if you are enjoying the show. Being part of the Hey Boomer community, and I really do see all of you as part of our community, means that you see yourself as relevant, involved, curious individuals who are interested in life and in other people. Listening to the conversations with our guests may inspire you, may give you new ideas and new ways to look at life. You may learn something, and I can assure you, listening to my guest today, you will learn something, I will learn something. This is going to be a very helpful call. So it's really important to join the conversation. I mean, I have plenty of questions to ask Dave, but I'm sure there are questions I haven't thought of or experiences that you have encountered that will enrich the conversation today. So I'll be monitoring your questions and I will share them with Dave. And if we don't get to all of your questions, then we will be able to follow up with you at the end of the broadcast. So without further ado, I would like to bring on my guest, Dave Benson. Hi, Dave.
Wendy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to see you. Thanks. So let me tell you a little bit about Dave and about how Dave and I met and know each other a little bit. So Dave Benson is a security professional who's going to talk to us about personal security. And personal security covers a lot of things. It's your internet security. It's people trying to scam you over the telephone or when they come to your door. It's when your personal security when you're traveling. And one of these days we will be able to travel again. And so how do you keep yourself safe in a hotel, in an airport? How do you keep your home safe when you're not there? And then hopefully we're going to have time to talk about your personal identity, because identity theft seems to be a big deal, and knowing how to protect yourself from identity theft or what to do if you should have your identity stolen. Dave and I first met about 7 or 8 years ago, I was the director of travel risk management for a international company, and Dave was an instructor for a high-risk travel program that we were offering to our clients. And the program had a component in it about kidnapping. And I said to Dave, please do not make me the kidnapping victim. I do not want that bag over my head. I won't handle that well. And so it's true. So he very graciously allowed me to just be an observer. And that way I could promote the course with our other clients, but I didn't have to experience having that bag over my head. Thank you for that, Dave.
You're absolutely welcome. Although we had it initialed, autographed, and everything for you, we were a bit disappointed, but we understood.
Yeah, well, hopefully I never have to know what that's like. So Dave is an accomplished security professional with over 40 years of public and private sector experience in the areas of security management, protective operations, contingency planning, and vulnerability risk assessment and mitigation. He has provided protective security for numerous secretaries of state and foreign dignitaries. He has served on overseas assignments in Egypt, Sri Lanka, Finland, and Bangladesh, and oversight of the diplomatic security planning and coordination for the 1996 Olympic Games. Dave now has his own company called DJ Benson and Associates, as well as securingsouls.com, where he provides security insights to houses of worship. And he's launching a new podcast, which I wanted to share with you, that is coming out this week. And this podcast is called Believe What You See and Hear. And it is about personal security and awareness. And we're going to talk more about that as we move through the program. So I'm really excited to listen to this podcast, Dave, because I think that's important to know what we see and hear, not just believe it.
Yeah, that's true, Wendy. Thank you very much for mentioning that. Just very briefly, the title is a little counterintuitive to some people. You know, you think you're not supposed to believe what you see and hear because there's so much junk on social media and television and whatever. What I'm talking about is knowledge is power, empowering individuals to have a more personal stake in their safety and security. And when you do that, then you're in a much better position to believe what you see and hear and make some decisions for your own safety.
Yeah. And I think trusting your intuition was something that you used to teach us too. If you have this feeling that it's not right, it's probably not right.
That's right. Correct.
Yeah. See, I learned. I paid attention.
You were a good student and a good colleague.
Well, I had a question to start with, but Rob Hanley from our audience just jumped right in there with a question. And he says, what do you think about TikTok?
Yeah, what a great question. I have a 29-year-old daughter who is just now, believe it or not, coming into the world of TikTok. I actually get on all of these social media outlets on purpose. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Just to make sure I can comment on it. I think the concern with TikTok is where is the origin, where it's from, who's currently managing it, and the fact that you can really, without knowing, put a lot of personal identifying data about yourself and your family and even where you live on an outlet like that. So I think if you're going to use it, you've got to be very cautious and be aware of what you're sharing.
Okay, I'm going to tell my granddaughter that because she uses TikTok. No personal identifying data.
Absolutely not. I mean, I can find out so much by some of these young people just by what they say and do on there. And that's the last thing we want to do. Hopefully we'll talk about that in a few minutes when we talk about social media security.
Yeah. So that's really where thanks for that question, Rob. That's really where I was going to start with the internet security and cybersecurity. I think they're kind of one and the same, right?
They are. I think so.
Yeah. So on a basic level, you know, for those of the audience who feel like they're, you know, on Facebook or they're in Google Mail and they see all these weird things pop up, what do they do with that?
Yeah, there's several different avenues that the malefactors, shall we say, that want to do you harm. They're primarily trying to gain information about you, biodata, who you are. You know, our own companies do the very same thing. Hopefully, not for nefarious reasons, but it's not an imagination when you look at a pair of tennis shoes online, and 20 minutes later you get an ad for the same pair of shoes. It's not magic. It's the algorithms, and it's how they tie that in. Well, some of these groups use the same means to gather information. What do they do with it? Well, sometimes they frankly sell it. They'll sell it to organized criminal groups. They'll sell it across the pond to international groups. There's a lot of end users for this information, none of which is good for us. Because the more that we release of our personal biodata and our likes and dislikes and birthdays and children's names and pets' names, the easier it is for these folks to come back in, if they're not already, and break into your individual sites or your bank account or whatever that might be.
So are you saying, like Facebook, one of the things that everybody seems to love about Facebook is when it's your birthday, you get everybody that you haven't talked to in 50 years wishing you happy birthday. Are you saying we shouldn't have our birthdays listed?
Not necessarily. I advocate, Wendy, that people be aware. They make some decisions on their own behalf. I don't get involved, and you absolutely shouldn't too much. I mean, there obviously are some things, but in this particular case, take a look at the security settings in Facebook. Facebook, for all of the criticism it's received, and to a certain degree, rightly so in the past years, they've come a long way. Twitter, the same way, and Instagram. Look what kind of security redundancies they have, and you can make a determination on how much you want to share and what you don't. I think that's the first start. Be a more aware consumer. The other thing I would say about Facebook, if you're a person that tells everybody from what you had for breakfast to where you are at any given moment, please avoid talking about places that you are right now. So if you're going to go on a 14-day cruise, don't tell people when you're leaving, when you're coming back. That they don't need to know that. If you're going to go on a public event, post it after you're gone and back, not when you're on your way. I have several clients that are celebrities, and they just don't quite figure this out. They don't understand why they have stalkers, and it's because they're telling people in advance where they're going and what they're doing. So really be careful with what you put on there. Don't be so explicit, particularly about personal things. Another one I'm very, very conservative and sensitive to is posting your children on social media, particularly younger children. I'm an advocate of doing that less is more, and not showing their bright and shiny faces and where they are and where they go to school and who their friends are. And so, again, that's a personal decision. But these are the types of things that predators online just live for. And you actually hand it to them on a silver platter.
I had also heard that if you are on a trip and you post, oh, here I am in, the Caribbean.
Right.
Not only are you now telling people there you are, but you're also telling people my home is empty.
That's right.
Go right in.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And so I think some prudence dictates that you have to be very careful with that. You can share fun information, but you don't need to share travel plans in great detail. You don't need to share. I see a lot people talk their pictures of the dashboard of their car or their license plate. You don't want to do that. It's just a bad idea. Not everybody is looking to do bad things, but those that are, that's the kind of stuff that they key on.
Now, do you know how somebody seems to take over your Facebook page? And is there a way to stop people from doing that?
Yeah, one of it is, believe it or not, continue to monitor your post. Pay attention to what's being said on there. Just don't willy-nilly allow people in to be friends or acquaintances. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know you. I'm not putting you on there. Because when you do that, you allow these people to come in, and some of them have technology to do what we call clone an account. Sometimes they'll build a phony Facebook or a Twitter account, but often they don't need to do that. All they need to do is to have the required biographical information, and they'll just clone it, and they'll monitor everything that you're doing. I have a client right now who I strongly suspect had his cell phone and his bank debit card cloned, to the point that every time he made a move or made a text or made a deposit or a withdrawal, they had other people watching it. So and then come to find out after some probing that individual had lost a wallet a month before and hadn't given it much thought they just misplaced it. So it's things like that. It's usually someone that is either monitoring what you're doing for their ill-gotten gains, or maybe it's a personal, a more devious reason that they're doing it. But at any rate, you've got to monitor your own accounts, block people that are inappropriate, and don't be afraid to hurt somebody's feelings if you want to lock down your account for a period of time.
Yeah, and I've seen, friends and even my mother who had their accounts cloned, and as soon as I realize it's not them, all I've known to do, Dave, is to contact them and say, I think your account has been cloned, change your password. Is that the fix?
That's certainly the short-term fix, and maybe it will go away. If it happens again, I'm a big believer in the rules of three. If that happens 2 or 3 times, it's probably not a coincidence. You might need to take more drastic measures. Don't be afraid to reach out to the companies. Sometimes they act like they're not very interested, and you know what? That's too bad. Your personal safety and security is more important. They're making billions of dollars off of us. And so let's not us be fast and loose with our personal information. But I recently had a client that a mystery text showed up that was supposedly from his teenage son, saying he was traveling across country and he wasn't traveling anywhere at all. So this leads to other challenges that maybe we don't have time for today. Things like express kidnappings, where they know you're away and they know you have a family member somewhere else in the country, and they get that number and tell them that they've kidnapped you. And if you don't pay this money, some harm's going to come with them. And they have no idea where your child is, and they're nowhere near that situation. So if we hold tight to our personal data, the better off we are with that.
Yeah, I remember us talking about those express kidnappings, and that is something that could happen to any of us. I mean, most of us are probably not going to be actually kidnap victims, but just for those listening, basically what that means is, if I'm traveling in Mexico, say, someone may get me with my card, my bank card, and they can start taking money out of my account, or they can call you. If I'm getting this right, Dave, they can call you back home and say, I've got Wendy's card, or I've got Wendy and whatever, but they don't really have me, right?
Right. And so there's various different iterations of this, and it's called different things. But that's the point. The point is they work on deception, and there's just a granule of truth to it that makes you think it's credible. And so that's part of one of the classic things about criminal scams all around the world is there's some particle of truth to it, and it's almost always based upon some deception. So that's what we want to be aware of.
Yeah. So continuing with deception. Okay. So people get these emails and it looks like it's from Amazon, or it looks like it's from AT&T. And it's like, oh, your account is behind, or we don't have the information we need from your account. Just click here and we'll fix this for you.
Yeah. And don't do that. Okay. And particularly if you're not expecting it. So some rules of thumb to go by. Generally, organizations and reputable companies, and certainly not government institutions, are going to ask you for personal biodata online before they'll provide you with a goods or service. So as soon as you see that, you want to avoid that. Do not click on that link, delete it. And if it becomes a chronic issue, let somebody else know, whether it be law enforcement or whatever. But many times you click on that link and they now have a virus that goes in and can read everything that you've got, whether it be bank accounts or personal information or credit cards. And you really can't do much about it. And so we just need to be, if you're not expecting it, And again, don't be shy about calling the company. If Amazon sends you a suspicious email, call Amazon. 99.9% of the time, that is a suspicious email. They need to have some identifiers as to who they are. And for goodness sake, there's no free lunch, unfortunately. So trying to get something easier because they want you to click on it is a recipe for disaster all too often.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. You can also sometimes tell by the actual email address.
Yes.
You know, if you see the extended address, it's not really Amazon. But yeah, don't click on that. Go to the Amazon page and see what's going on from there. And it's probably nothing.
A lot of times these scams originate offshore. And so for we English speakers, the English and the grammar isn't really good. And that's another way to look at it as well. If you have trouble reading it and you're a native English speaker and it's supposedly written in English, that's probably a problem.
That's a good point too. Yeah. And then, you know, we get a lot of calls on our phone that are from numbers that we don't know.
Right.
Now, most of us, I hope, don't answer it.
Right.
And if it's important, they'll leave you a message. But what if you answer it? Where are these calls coming from and what are they looking for?
Well, it's interesting. They're coming from all over the place. And they couch what they're doing, veil it in various different ways. Like, I'm from the Internal Revenue Service. You're behind in your taxes. And this is a classic one for some of our elder population, retirees. And they'll say, if you don't send us $5,000, there'll be a warrant for your arrest and a U.S. Marshal will come knock on your door. So let's break this down into its simplest terms. First of all, that's not what the U.S. Marshal Service does. Number two, the IRS is not going to call you and ask for money and threaten you. That's not the way that works. So when that happens, either hang up, ask them for more information. One of the things I'll do, if they call me, it's happened to me, I'll say, hey, why don't we give you your office number and I'll call you back, or fax me some information, and they usually go away pretty quickly. But again, don't fall for that. Anytime they ask you for something before they'll do something for you, that's a red flag.
We had an experience when I was away and my mother got this flashing warning on her screen. Your computer's been hacked, and click here and we'll help you. And so she did. And she called their phone number and they were so nice, Dave. They were so nice to her, and she was like late 80s and she was like, oh, they're trying to help me. This is so nice. Well, they said, it's going to cost you some money. And so let's go to your bank account. And at that point, she started to think, okay, this isn't a good deal. Well, it turned out to be ransomware. So not only did she not go to her bank account, thank goodness, because I had told her enough times, don't do that.
Yeah.
They locked her out of her computer, completely locked her out.
They will do that. And I was going to talk a little bit about ransomware. Ransomware is extremely powerful. It's frankly more dangerous for small and medium-sized companies because usually the people that send these types of ransom notes online have the capability to shut down your account. And so a lot of companies will actually pay that ransom. Now, I'm not advocating that. We're talking about to our boomer listeners, the small price to pay to have them shut you out of your account. You can get somebody come in and help you with that, but do not engage with these folks when they do that. Believe it or not, they're not particularly discerning. Wendy, you know my background. I'm a retired federal agent. I had one threaten to shut down my security consultant account. And I said, knock yourself out. Let me give you a couple of contact numbers. So I don't recommend that. But the point is, don't be intimidated by these folks. Just cut them off. Don't engage.
Yeah. They can be so convincing and charming initially. That's the danger there.
Yep.
But like you said, if you don't know them, if you weren't expecting that call, ask for a callback number or check with the other company.
Right.
What about people that show up at your door? And they're doing a lot of this too. Maybe not as much now with the coronavirus, but to seniors, they'll show up to their door and they'll say, oh, we're here to fix something. And
right.
you were not expecting them.
No, and that's the key right there. If you're not expecting them, be suspicious. Um, Ask for ID. If they can't show you photo ID or paperwork, do not engage with them. I'd prefer you not answer the door. If you have an intercom or whatever, but if you do answer the door, keep the chain latched. Do not let them in. They're more likely scammers, and they're looking to take money from people that are vulnerable. And we have seen a surge in some of these scams in the pandemic, believe it or not. Not so much door to door, but certainly happening. We see it during hurricane season. Hey, your roof looks bad. Let's get that roof inspected for $5,000. You'll have that peace of mind. And oh, by the way, if you don't have the cash on you, you can just go ahead and send us gift cards. That's another thing. If someone asks you to be paid in Bitcoin or gift cards, don't do that. There's a reason why they want that done that way. So scams, online scams are like at a 65% spike during the pandemic for all kinds of different reasons. Hey, we want to help you with your Social Security insurance. We want to help you file your claim, whatever that might be. So if you don't know who they are, if they're not reputable, ignore them. Don't engage.
So Dave, let me ask you this. There's all these virus checkers out there.
Right.
Do you have a favorite, and do they do anything to protect us from these scammers, these bad emails, these bad actors?
Yeah, from a virus standpoint, it really depends on the type of equipment you have, for one thing. Historically, although it's beginning to change a little bit, and again, I'm not advocating for one type of software or a package for another. Apple software has been more difficult to clone and to plant viruses than Windows-based and other things, and Android-based. But nonetheless, it's a good idea to come up with a reputable antivirus plan, both for your laptop and your if you have a tablet, and yes, even your phone. There is antivirus for your phone, because your phone nowadays is a mini computer. And if you're like me, I try to practice what I preach. But if I lost my phone, Houston, we have a problem, because there's a lot of stuff on there, and I'm sure you could say the same thing. So we want to do whatever we need to do that. Another thing that ties in with this is that where you go online has a real potential impact on what can happen to you. So if you're home and you've got virus protection and you've got some kind of a security on your, whether it be a cable, internet or whatever, and they all have extra ones, go in there to their security suite and see what they have. And most of the time it's free. But where we get into trouble is when we go out to the coffee shop, we go shopping, and we're online. And now all of a sudden we're doing something sensitive like banking on an open source Wi-Fi line. And that is, you might as well just hand that to somebody when you do that. And so what you really want to do there, if you must do that type of work away from home, and again, I'm suggesting you don't, get a VPN, get a virtual private network. They're not very expensive. Some are free, and you can log into that and do work. And it makes it much more difficult to crack into, because the line is encrypted. So that's another something to think about there.
So the virus protector, like McAfee, Kathy just asked about McAfee. So that protects me like if I go to a website that has some spyware on it or whatever, or wants to download a virus, but that does not protect me from these false Amazon emails or that Nigerian prince that wants me to bring money over or any of that.
No, so we have to be more aware and recognize what that is. It'll pick up some of those, but in reality, cybersecurity, the key to cybersecurity now is you don't have to be next to somebody to steal information from them. You can be across the planet. So it's all about how you transmit that information.
Yeah.
And so, you want to have a suite of things, which includes yourself monitoring your own activity, being a good consumer, having a suite of antivirus, but then also be on the lookout for some of these, whether it be Trojan horses or worms or whatever it might be, because they're still out there. And as I said, they've been on the increase during this period where everybody's home and everybody has to work from home. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you did mention, working on an open network, like
Right.
would happen in an airport
Right.
or in a hotel. And I mean, I remember when I used to travel for work, and I see Bruce is on the call.
Is he?
Yeah.
Hi, Bruce.
So when I used to travel for work, we had rules about how you could use your laptop in an airport or in the hotel, and a VPN was certainly one of those things. Don't do any private work there where it could be seen somehow or captured. So can you talk about how we can safely use devices and have conversations safely in airports and hotels?
So I think we just want to be very cautious first and foremost. And if we need to have what we consider to be a private or a sensitive conversation, the airport waiting area is not the place to have that. Number one. Number two, utilizing the airport Wi-Fi is not a good idea, because I guarantee you there's people already in the area looking to gather information. I remember I did some work for a client one time, and it was at his home. And he was a high-ranking official with this company, and he would go home on the weekends and take work home with him and a laptop. And I met him in the office on a Monday, and I said, do you work from home? He says, oh, yeah, but I'm very secure. I pulled up my trusty Apple MacBook, and I said, is this your paperwork? And is this your documents that you were working on this weekend? Where'd you get that? I said, I sat at the end of your street corner and just opened up my browser. So he didn't have even the most fundamental things that we were talking about. It doesn't take a lot of sophistication to be somewhat secure. The other thing, when you're traveling on business, business computer should be a business computer. I always tell my clients, without going into great detail, don't bring your hurts, habits, and addictions with you when you travel, because you're not in Kansas anymore. And if you're caught with certain things on your computer, it could be a heck of a lot harder for us to get you home. And as you know, Wendy, I know that firsthand from my time in the State Department. Yeah. So keep it very simple. Ask for that special software. Talk to your company, on what you want them, what they want you to have, what they don't, how to carry that information, store that information in a safe. When you get to your destination, don't leave it out. Simple things, log in, log out. All these sorts of things need to be routine, and it can make a really big difference.
So that's if you're traveling for a business, Dave. So what if we're just traveling for a vacation and we want to bring our laptop so we can Facebook message with friends at home, or send emails and whatever? How do we keep that? Do we have to clean that before we go somewhere?
Well, I think you should do an inspection before you go. Wendy, you may remember with the training you went through with us, we had an exercise called "What's in your wallet" or "What's in your purse?" Mm-hmm. And we'd have the students dump everything out. Well, what's in your cell phone? Is there anything in your cell phone that would be either embarrassing or just unnecessary for you to carry with you? And don't take that with you. Compartmentalize it out. Use a phone that uses, I hate to use the term burner phone, but one that you can actually put in, memory cards and just use them when you're at your destination, but you don't have your whole private world with you when you go. I mean, that's really what I recommend. If you don't have to travel with your laptop, you can get on with your iPad. You can even get on with your phone. There are apps like, App Chat and some other things you can do that are somewhat more encrypted. We know they're good because the bad guys use them too, unfortunately. But you're not allowing people to access your personal data and information.
Yeah, that's good advice, Dave. One thing I remember talking about in one of our training classes was hotel security. Right. And something that, let me let you go and start about that, and then I'll say something that I learned if you don't mention it.
Okay, no, that's perfect. So even before we talk about hotels, you want to research your destination. Spend some time. Again, I said at the outset, knowledge is power, getting smart about where you're going. What are some of the challenges? And that includes picking out a place of lodging or a hotel. Is it one that makes more sense to go as a group, or is it one if you're going to be traveling by yourself or in pairs? Are there certain challenges with that hotel or that hotel chain? And look at that. And then once you do it, don't settle for what's been done for you. What do I mean by that? When you check in and they say, hey, we've got a wonderful room for you on the first floor overlooking the pool, and you're not comfortable with that because somebody can go right through the sliding glass door and rob you or harm you, don't be afraid to say, I need something up on a higher floor. Or even if you're not comfortable, move at request to have the floor moved around. We all know there are certain parts of the world where people are watching us constantly. And so we probably want to be a little more cautious and prudent when we do that as well. When you talk about who you are and your identification information, don't walk up and say, hey, I'm Dave Benson. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I'm a retired federal agent, and I'm not afraid of anybody. Give me my room, right? I've just told them an awful lot of things that they don't need to know. Hand them your driver's license. Hand them the credit card. The information they need is on there. Now, they may use your name, but you don't need the broadcast. When they give you the room number, you don't need to go, 721. Okay, Frank, I'll see you in an hour. That's where I'm staying. This is where we get into potential problems. From the checking in all the way out. Know your entrance and exit points. Don't go in and out of the hotel the same way. At least be prepared to have that conversation. What if there's an emergency? How are you going to respond to that? When I was assigned to Cairo, we often said, if guests only knew that we're on the 28th floor, that the fire apparatus at that time went to the 9th floor. Well, how does that make you feel? Well, it's a decision. You may not decide to move, but it's nice to know. It's kind of adding to that idea of being mindful, but yet not fearful, and having control over your own destiny.
Right. Yeah, that was the kind of stuff I remember Bruce talking about that. Like if you go on the floor, look to the right and the left, where's the closest exit, and just know where it is. So in case something happens and it's in the dark, you can find your way to that exit. And the same thing about the fire ladders, over the 7th or the 9th floor, a lot of them in foreign countries aren't going to be able to reach you.
And so it becomes a choice, right? We never say you can't go where. I like to fly first class. I love to get upgraded. But first class isn't always the best place to be on an aircraft if there's a security hazard, because it's right out on the aisle. So it's just an example. You want to make some decisions on your own behalf. Don't be afraid to shift gears based upon your awareness and your surroundings and what you hear before you go, what it's like when you're in country. And the chances of you becoming a victim of crime become much less because you are an informed, traveler.
Yeah. There's so much we could talk about, Dave, and the awareness, I think, and trusting your intuition is so much a big part of it. I wanted to share again your podcast and let you talk about your goal on that and how we're going to be able to find it, so that we can continue to learn more about this awareness and believing what you see and hear.
Right. So and this anybody that knows me or has been a student of mine or has worked with me knows that I just kind of instinctively developed this concept years ago. Believe what you see and hear, because people get hurt and sometimes killed every day because they think about what it is. Is that a gunshot, or is it backfiring, or is that a popcorn machine? Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. So if you're an informed individual, you're empowered, you've researched your destination, you know what's to anticipate, where you're going to be and where you aren't, then you can be in a better position to believe what you see and hear, right? And to make some decisions on your own behalf for your own safety and security. My goal here is to take my 40 plus years, hard to believe it's been that long, but I did start as a child, for people to make rather complex issues and break them down into their simplest terms so everybody can understand and how they can make their life more safe and secure. And hopefully weave it into their normal routine. So it's not something that's debilitating and, hey, that's too hard, I'm not going to do that. So we're going to talk about things like de-escalation, a big hot topic now, regardless of where you are on the mask wars, as we call it right now in the middle of the pandemic. You're very likely to get into a potentially volatile situation by engaging in that. De-escalating people that are angry for whatever reason, and for your own safety and security, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be at home, or frankly, even the Thanksgiving dinner table, if you have that crazy relative that you have to sit next to every year that picks a fight, how you can de-escalate a volatile situation. So de-escalation, again, some of the personal safety and security practices. Another hot topic, sadly, is what happens if you find yourself in the middle of a demonstration or a riot? And we've had more than our share of those in the past few weeks. There are some things you can do to keep yourself more safe and secure, not the least of which not being there. But if you're there, some things you can do. So domestic intimate partner violence, its impact on our society, and not just for the workplace. Violence prevention in general. I now do a lot of work in the threat assessment and threat management area. And, what's the difference between making a threat and posing a threat? All these sorts of things. But again, to break it down, hopefully in an easy to understand dialogue, some of it will be me talking, but some of it will be interviewing subject matter experts I've gotten to know around the world and talking some of their areas of expertise. We're not trying to be perfect with the podcast. We'll get better every week. We probably got 3 in the can. We'll probably launch the introductory one sometime this week. I'm going to have it up on my own Believe What You See and Hear website within a week or so, and be able to do it that way. But the idea is to be helpful and to start a dialogue to keep us all more safe and secure.
So Dave, when it goes live, will
Yes.
you send me the contact information and I can share it with the audience?
Absolutely. And I'd like to extend an invitation for you to be one of my guests. I'd love to return the favor and interview you.
Oh, that's sweet. I would
Because
love
think
that.
we got a lot of combined knowledge that we can talk about and share over the years that I think the viewers would be interested in. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to let them know also that you do a lot of work with houses of worship. You were talking about your risk mitigation and, assessments. And so if you do have questions for Dave that we weren't able to answer today, the best way to reach him is at his email address, dave@securingsouls.com. And I just want to say, all the time that I have known Dave and worked in this arena, at first it can seem a little overwhelming. It's like, oh my gosh, there's all these things to be afraid of, but there's really not. What's to be afraid of is to not know, to not be aware, to not be educated, to be at the mercy of these bad actors. And so the more you can educate yourself through conversations like this, hopefully listening to some of your podcasts, the safer you start to feel and the less fearful it becomes.
I think that's right. Knowledge is power. I've said it several times now. And the more you know, the better you're equipped to make some decisions on your family's behalf, your colleagues, and frankly, make that kind of mindfulness part of your daily routine.
Yeah. So thank you for all of this. This has been fabulous.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it was my pleasure. And those of you on the call, you can go back and watch this again on this page, or you can refer people to the YouTube channel. This will be up on YouTube by the end of today. And so you can go and watch it there or share it with your friends and family. It's an important topic. So please let everybody know about this. And let me briefly tell you about my guest for next week. So my guest next week, her name is Sally Dunbar. And Sally is a real estate agent in California. And she leads a team for the Susan B. Komen 3-day walk called Hands Up for Hooters. Sally was featured in a book called Women Who Rise. After her first couple of years of participating in the walk with her mother, who was close to 90, Sally set an audacious fundraising goal for herself. And with her just say yes philosophy, she set about reaching her goal. And this is going to be another one of those very inspiring talks. You're going to, just say yes is really the bottom line of this. So hopefully you all will get a chance to hear Sally's story. That's going to be great. Just a reminder, when I am not doing this broadcast, I am coaching people through retirement and helping people who want to network better online, since we're not doing live networking events now. And I am looking for sponsors for the show, and we're going to try and do a big community meeting for all of our Hey Boomer community to come together, and some of our guests, and have roundtables to talk about more in-depth questions that you might have. So let's see. C.S. Lewis reminded us that you are never too old to dream and never too old to set another goal. So let's keep meeting weekly to learn, dream, and share. And I am so grateful for all of you, and for you, Dave. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.